This program is rightly called the India Educators Dialogue, where we shall be coming together off and on to discuss various facets of education in modern India. It's quite important, you see. Education, if I remember correctly, is not just information gleaned from textbooks. Education is much, much more than that. And today, when we talk of education, for some reason, for some very valid reasons, we go back 15th of July 2015, when the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, launched the wonderful scheme which we called the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Obviously, the Kaushal Vikas Yojana is primarily for students from ITI, as I was reading, and to make them more employable. The word employability has gained a lot of importance, and it is equally relevant to institutes of higher learning as well. So before I go any further, let me first introduce the panel to you, and then I'll take on a few more things and ask some relevant questions. We have Dr. Harsh V. Verma from FMS Delhi. We have then Dr. Tapan Kumar Naik from IMS Ghaziabad. We have Dr. Rajesh Pilania from MDI Gurgaon. We have Dr. Bikramjit Rishi from IMT Ghaziabad. And Professor Suresh Advani, Dean, Modi University, a leading women's university based in Lakshmangarh. So we were talking of employability. Now employability is all about being job ready, being market ready. Now these are just buzzwords if taken without a necessary base or basis. And buzzwords have never helped an individual nor a country, which is very obvious. Let me first talk of education. Education, according to me, has three keywords: access, quality, and distribution. Access obviously means either the student comes to the place of learning, or the place of learning goes to the student. So far as this is concerned, we've seen great improvement in the country. Distribution is obviously about an equitable demographic presence of institutes of learning in a particular area. Quality, when we come to quality, this is where all the funny things lie. And this is what the panel today is going to talk about. And I'll request Dr. Harsh Verma from FMS Delhi to first tell us what he really thinks about skill development, because skill development without a valid explanation, which is both theoretically and practically possible, can mean nothing. Sir.
Okay, skill development आज के लिहाज से देखा जाए तो एक बहुत अहम मुद्दा है, because दो टर्म्स जो हम फ्रीक्वेंटली इस्तेमाल करते हैं वो है, एक है डेमोग्राफिक बल्ज और दूसरा है डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड. नाउ डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड का मतलब यह है कि हमारे जो नए लोग ऑन एन एवरेज 30 लाख लोग वर्क फोर्स में ज्वाइन करते हैं, जिसमें के केवल 5 से 10% या 15% लोग ऐसे होते हैं जो कि जॉब रेडी होते हैं. बाकी लोग जॉब रेडी नहीं होते हैं, लेकिन यदि देखा जाए वो सब एक तरह से स्कूल्स में या छोटे इंस्टीट्यूशंस में या बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशन से पढ़ के आते हैं. ना सवाल ये होता है कि यदि उनमें कौशल या स्किल डेवलप नहीं हुआ और केवल टेक्स्ट बुक जैसी नॉलेज लेके वो मार्केट में आए, तो वो एक तरह का डेमोग्राफिक बल्ज क्रिएट करेंगे, जिसके लिए हिंदुस्तान में एक बहुत बड़ी समस्या आने वाले टाइम पे हो सकती है, क्योंकि बाय एंड लार्ज ये लोग जॉब के बिना होंगे और हिंदुस्तान की इकोनॉमी के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा बर्डन बनेंगे. इस समय सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा यही है कि हम अपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम को किस तरह से कनेक्ट करें जॉब रेडीनेस से. और इसमें दो इंपॉर्टेंट मुद्दे आ रहे हैं कि जो हमारे एजुकेशनल सिस्टम है उसको हमें अलाइन करना पड़ेगा उस इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ जो कि फ्यूचर में आने वाली है. Take for example, IT is a dominant industry, and we are able to leverage the skills which we were able to develop and which helped us catapult ourselves as number one or a major power in IT. Now सवाल आता है कि क्या हमारा यही मॉडल एप्लीकेबल रहेगा ऑटोमोबाइल्स के लिए, फार्मास्यूटिकल्स के लिए, मेडिसिन्स के लिए, एजुकेशन के लिए और डिफरेंट इंडस्ट्रीज में पास्ट रिकॉर्ड ये है कि हमारे इन सब इंडस्ट्रीज में जो भी स्किल या कौशल की जरूरत है वो हमारे यहाँ वर्कफोर्स रेडी नहीं है। तो उसको रेडी करने के लिए एक महत्वपूर्ण चैलेंज हमारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में ये है कि हम अपनी एजुकेशन को किस तरह से अलाइन करें यूनिवर्सिटी सिस्टम को, जो कि केवल टेक्स्ट बुक ड्रिवन है और जिनका कोई ताल्लुक या मेजर ताल्लुक उस जगह से नहीं है, लिंकेजेस नहीं है जो कि हमारे एम्प्लॉयर्स हैं। सो देयरफॉर इट्स ए मेजर चैलेंज। नाउ हाउ वी कैन डू दैट? सबसे बड़ी बात कि क्या हम क्रॉस लिंकेजेस क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, क्रॉस लिंकेजेस बिटवीन द institutions which are involved in giving so-called schooling and the institutions which will absorb them. So this is a major challenge.
Now that was very interesting, Dr. Verma, talking about that only 10 to 15% of the students that we are producing or we have been producing are job ready, and they might give rise to a demographic bulge. I would really love to have your opinion, Dr. Tapan Kumar Nayak. If the basic aim of converting every student into a job ready student by 2022, as the Prime Minister said, do you think that can really be a reality? Because if we already had the infrastructure, if our institutes already had the infrastructure, why is it that this was not happening?
It's nice point. I'd like to take two things before I move into this particular point. First point is that the quality in the system of higher education, because I hope it is linked to the skill development. What exactly we mean by quality in the system of higher education? That's a buzzword, as you said, that we focus on employability. Now, what exactly do you mean by employability? Employability means that the student, the job seeker, should be a skilled one. The employability means there should be a proper relation between what he has learned and what he is going to practice in the corporate sector. Third point is that there should be a proper linkage between the industry academia interface. Student should be ready enough to work in the corporate sector in line with what he has studied. Second, I am moving to the skill development. Skill development, there is a huge mismatch. We should first map the mismatch. What exactly do you mean by mapping the mismatch? Mismatch in the sense of demand and supply of the students, demand and supply of the skilled students, right? And we know basically there are three different types of mismatch. One, there is a geographical mismatch. Second, there is a sectoral mismatch. Third, there is a skill mismatch. Geographical mismatch, students are ready to go for the work, but the employers are not reaching to them. A student in Jammu Kashmir, he may be well developed, well skilled, but the employers are not reaching to them. Second, sectoral development, a student from one sector is missing out to the next another sector. Skill mismatch, that the student having one particular skill is not able to cope up with the another particular skill required by the industry. So we should first let us focus on the interface between what industry people require, what the corporate needs, and how we develop our students in the universities or academic institutions.
An interesting revelation, and we go on to what Dr. Rajesh Pilania from MDI Gurgaon has to say about the concept of skill development.
Okay, since the importance of topic is well established, let me go to the solution part. But before I go to the solution part, let's start with the story. I'm a big fan of Hindi movies, and there was one famous movie, 3 Idiots. उसमें एक सीन था कि जो मेन एक्टर है आमिर खान, what he used to do, whatever he was learning in the class, he used to play with instruments which were available in the institute, and from there we can learn something in skill development. But before we go to the solution part, let me look at the problem part. Globally, there are questions on relevance of MBA. How much value actually MBA is adding? Similarly, in India, there are reports by McKinsey and others that students are not employable. And that's where the irony is. In management, we teach that we should listen to the customer, that customer is king. And for B schools, the customer is industry. And if the industry is saying that the students are not employable, that means that we are not listening to the customer. And that's a big problem. So how to solve this? I think most of us know what the problem is. So let's look at the solution part. Let me divide the solution part into three parts. First is that we need to look at what are we teaching. Many times there is a huge gap between what the industry is expecting and what are we teaching. It doesn't require rocket science to identify what the industry is looking for. Maybe there are certain guidelines or restrictions by AICTE that you can't change your syllabus per year, or there are certain limitations. But within that, we can build in components to ask the industry, okay, what you are looking for, and try to incorporate as much as possible. That's the first part. Try to teach our students what the customer is asking for. Second part is how to teach. And I think that's the main problem is. And the solution is, since you are talking about skills you learn when you apply. Just by reading something, you won't apply it. So if we create more activities which engages students in applying what they are learning in the classroom, probably this problem can be solved to some extent. And here there is a bigger problem. When I came to teaching, there was no guidance of any kind. There was no training how to be a good teacher. And I feel the same problem with most of newcomers. I think we should start some place, some institute, or maybe some department in every management institute to teach teachers how to actually teach. Generally what happens, we teach theoretical concept or we use case studies, and students learn some part of theory, something from case study, but they don't learn how to actually apply that. So the solution lies in that we also need to look at, we as teachers, that how passionate we are as teacher, how much experiment we do with our teaching, and how much interesting and funny we make the classroom. I'm not saying that we need to compromise on the content part, but can you bring them some fun element? For example, if we go back again to movies, each movie of Raju Hirani has some message, but it's delivered in a funny way, in an interesting way.
Dr. Pilania, that's a very, very interesting and rather divergent view. And you know, we've traveled from the insights into employability to the flaws and the lacunas in methodology of teaching, as well as the competence of our faculty. The only question that is there in my mind, and I would like to ask Dr. Bikramjit Rishi this particular question, is, do you really think that all the hullabaloo, all the problem that we are facing is because of methodologies, faulty methodologies, and faculty who is not so information savvy?
There are two perspectives which I want to share, which are very, very important to be looked into before we look at the methodologies of teaching in Indian institutions. One, when we look at skill development in India, it is very important to note that skills are not similar across sectors. One, what I mean is, for example, if you look at polytechnic and ITI institutions, there is a cultural issue. Even if you are delivering good, if you are training a plumber or an electrician, how that skill is being perceived in the Indian culture. This is a very important issue. One. Second, if you look at the higher education system in India, moving from polytechnic to ITI and moving towards universities and educational institutions, another perspective, there is a lag between academic and industry orientation, and the methodologies which are being used that are not with the times. There's a change which is required in how we teach, what we preach, and what we practice.
Preach.
Okay, I am saying not teaching, it's the preaching more, just because of the simple reason that I as a teacher is preaching, not practicing. It is very important to practice. First I should practice myself, only then I can tell my students how to practice that. So there is a need further to understand that how to bridge it. This could only be bridged in the Indian context if industry comes to the institutions. Now there is an issue which is going on. Indian institutions are going to industry. Industry is not coming to Indian institutions. So there is a gap. My solution to this is that there must be a need from the government side to encourage industry to come out with the ways to create centers of excellence in Indian institutions where industry problems are going to be solved by the students and the faculty on continuous basis. And that will lead to the skill development of the students, and the same company can take those students for employment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rishi. And now we have on our panel Dr. Suresh Vani from Modi University. And this, as I mentioned earlier, is a leading women's university. I would like to ask Dr. Advani if all the points brought forth by all the other panelists, they are just as relevant to a women's university, or would there be any difference so far as skill development in education is concerned?
I agree with you that the skills that are applicable or required for a male candidate and for a female candidate cannot be different, because the job that they are going to do are going to be similar or even identical. But before I expand on that, I would like to share with you that the development of education has gone through 3 different waves. The first wave of education has been where we have taught our people mass production. During the Taylor's time, we were only talking about efficiency and more efficiency. How do you do mass production? Then came the second wave, which was about the Ford Foundation recommendation, where we went and taught people professionalization. Apart from producing and being efficient, how to be far more professional in their approach. Now we are entering the third phase, the third wave of educational development, where we talk of personalization of education. Education has to be totally customized to the individual, and this particular requirement has come from the industry. The industry is demanding that the student must be completely job ready as they want it. So before we can come to any solution, we need to understand what is it that the industry really wants. Today's globalized world also demands that we must focus on serving the local community, but it has to be done with a global perspective and a global outlook. The problem lies, as one of the panelists mentioned, is the delivery part. And therefore, pedagogical innovation is a very, very important aspect of this, which we will discuss as we go along in this. And finally, what was mentioned is that we need to bring in more practice orientation into the classroom. So what we need to do is translate the research into practice. If we don't translate the research into practice, the research will become just pure research and will not be practice oriented. So this will lead to faculty development and at the same time corporate engagement both of the student and the faculty, where faculty are given sabbaticals to go and work in the industry for 6 months, bring back the real knowledge into the classroom, and then not only to talk about that, but also to write cases and bring in simulation exercises into the class.
That's an extremely interesting observation, faculty sabbaticals. I would certainly love to ask Dr. Harsh Verma what he has any opinion on faculty sabbaticals.
Now the point which is raised is about faculty sabbatical. Now the question is, what are we discussing? The discussion is about skill development, and we say that, well, there is skill gap. Now the question is, what is skill gap? In my limited understanding, skill gap implies that, well, what you teach in a class is actually not being practiced by the student. Now, how do you get people who are in schools, in colleges, in other institutions, to make them ready so that once they are placed on the job, they are able to perform? Now, it's something like, you're trying to teach somebody how to drive without actually getting this gentleman on the steering wheel and making him move the gears. So how do we do it? Now, as one panelist suggested that, well, one of the ways to achieve this is faculty sabbatical. In my limited understanding, faculty sabbaticals do not yield any kind of results. By and large, faculty sabbaticals are for research purposes. They are not given for joining industry and getting exposed. It's presumed that, well, you will hire a professor who is teaching ready.
सर इसमें जो मुझे लगा एक अंदरूनी विरोधाभास सा दिखा मुझे, because one hand you were not in favor of giving sabbaticals to teachers, to faculty, presuming or assuming that sabbaticals are meant only for research purposes. Isn't it time that this thought process changed drastically, and the entire meaning of sabbaticals is changed?
My reaction to that would be that, well, you will invite a lot of problems. First of all, how do you place a professor into an industry? What kind of position he will have? And the second is that, well, when you hire a teacher, I think, it's part of the competence of teacher that, well, he updates, knows what is happening in the industry, and then brings that in class.
I would like to go back, Professor Suresh Advani, and ask him whether he agrees with Dr. Harish.
Honestly, there can be yes or no to that kind of a proposition. However, given my personal experience in this particular field, let me tell you that I have spent over 30 years in industry myself before I came to the field of academics. Given that background, the kind of delivery and the kind of engagement that I have been able to attract from the student has been, in my opinion, phenomenal. Because at every point in time when we discuss a particular concept, we bring out examples from my background. And therefore, if a person spends or engages with industry, either with sabbatical or otherwise, through maybe industry sponsored research or maybe some kind of real life projects provided by the industry to the students, the engagement with industry is absolutely essential in my opinion.
Thank you. I guess one of our panelists wants to add more to this particular query, and we have Dr. Tapan Kumar Naik.
Well, I would like to take the points raised by both Dr. Verma and Dr. Suresh, that the sabbatical leaves for the professors or the industry people to the educational institutes for the skill development issues. I have a point here, rather I would more go with Dr. Verma here, that most of the B schools, in line with that, have started recruiting the people from industries, keeping in mind that the industry people will contribute more to a practice oriented education. But what we find, since my 12 to 15 years of education career, what I find personally, honestly, that the people whom we recruit from industry, either by choice or by their interest, they miserably failed so far as teaching learning process is concerned.
So you see, so education is getting more and more complex. I mean, I thought it's going to be a very simple thing, and that everybody is going to say yes, skill development should be incorporated, and then we'll be at a loss for words to how to continue the debate. But this is getting more and more interesting, and we have Dr. Rishi with probably another divergent view.
First and foremost, I have not said that industry is arrogant. Why industry is arrogant? Because you don't have students who are ready for, who are not ready, having appropriate skills to be employed. Now, my second opinion, we are talking about here, Professor Verma is talking about sabbatical, and the gentleman from my right side is also talking about sabbatical. I have a different opinion about how to engage in the faculty with industry. If we look at UGC and AICT, there are a lot of funds which are available, which are being given to faculty to conduct a research. Now my question to the august panel here and to the policymakers is that the research which is being conducted in India with those funds, whether that research is having any applicability to industry or not, that is the biggest question.
When you educate a man, you just educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate the entire humanity.
The main reason to start this university was that there are very limited number of universities in India which are exclusively dedicated to women.
Both have been selected for the prestigious summer internship program at University of North Texas, United States. And we are really grateful to Modi University.
Industry leaders come and engage with the students to help them in becoming practical managers.
One-of-a-kind practical approach to law through its moot court is such an example of Modi University's commitment towards imparting quality education. Welcome to Modi University.
So I'd like to ask another panelist something, if you can tell us something on actionable education. I mean, what do you really understand by actionable education?
Before I go to actionable education, I would like to make two quick comments about what my fellow panelists were saying. Probably I was misquoted that industry is arrogant. I have a different viewpoint, that industry is very humble. Coming to actionable education and limiting myself to only MBA course, my understanding is that MBA by definition is for people who want to work for industry, mainly industry. But these days MBAs are also going to politics, social sectors. I'm not going there. Okay, how to make it actionable? Again, it comes back to skill development. If you want to take any action, you need to know something and you need to apply something. And for application, you need skill.
Everything has to be extremely oriented towards very practical kind of education and not education that exists out of textbooks. I would now request each one of the panelists to tell us in 2 or 3 sentences as to how or what they really think of skill development and its relevance to India. My request is please stick to skill development.
Well, honestly, just to support the Skill India movement of Government of India, when I say we, the Government of India, the industry people and the academicians should focus on mapping the gap of mismatch of the demand and supply of skilled workforce through a practice oriented knowledge either inside the classroom or through a different kind of activities inside or outside.
To borrow a phrase from the Air Force, we talk about students must hit the ground running, and therefore they need to influence practice. And if that has to happen, we have to develop in the student analytical skills, decision making skills, and also sensitizing the students to the underprivileged sections of society.
Frankly, I did not presume that skill development would become such a complex issue and which would be debated with so much of heartfelt energy. There's just one thing I'd like to say, and that is, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And this is what the decision makers and the people who need to have the right political will to push skill development further. And I do hope Prime Minister Modi is watching this program. There's a lot to learn from fabulous panelists we had today. Thank you.
Since its establishment in 1990, Institute of Management Studies Ghaziabad has added many a feather to its cap.
With a very small institution in a rented premises with 60 students.
IMS Ghaziabad has earned a reputation for academic excellence.
Well, the academics here definitely gives a broader perspective of
IMS group of institutes with 3 campuses and a student strength of around 10,000